So you're probably wondering, why in the world did a 24-year-old with no 4-year degree quit a job making over $200,000 a year to go out and pursue his dreams of buying multifamily real estate? Well, I'm going to be breaking it down in today's video. And make sure you stay till the very end. Now being gone 3 years, I can certainly tell you whether it was the biggest mistake I've ever made or it was the best decision that we've ever made. So jumping right into it, where did I exactly work to be able to make $200,000 a year without having a college degree? You might know him. I worked at billionaire Grant Cardone's real estate team, Cardone Capital, for about 3 years in total, and I ended up working my way to be one of the top investor relations associates there, raising capital from investors to go out and buy really big multifamily apartment complexes. And because I was raising $40 to $50 million in a year, we were fortunate enough to be able to be paid over $200,000 at a very young age. Now this is between base salaries and performance incentive bonuses based on how much the individual was raising. So not everybody there makes $200,000 a year. You have to be good at what you do to be overpaid in any position, but specifically working in that organization. Now to give you context, I don't have a 4-year degree, and how I ended up actually landing that job working for Cardone Capital is I started in real estate at the age of 20, working at a commercial real estate brokerage called Marcus & Millichap. I ended up working there for almost an entire year without being paid a single dollar. And I did that because I wanted to get exposed to the commercial real estate space, is because I knew that at some point in my life I wanted to grow up and be a real estate investor and be rich. So I was willing to do whatever it took just to get around the right people, work for free, and do all of the grunt work that nobody wants to do in order to get the experience. And working there for almost a year got me enough experience, and I had the hunger and drive to be able to make it in Grant's organization. And I ended up starting working at Cardone Capital in late 2019, and the only reason that I landed that job is because of the experience I had working at Marcus & Millichap for an entire year. Now, how in the world did I end up making the decision to actually quit a job making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? To give you context, I started that position thinking I was going to be there for a very long period of time. And I took the first 2 years to really dial in and get great at one thing, and that being raising capital from investors. So I was on the phone all freaking day, 12 hours a day, talking to investors that were investing $50,000 all the way up to $5 million into a multifamily deal. And through enough repetition, I ended up becoming really sharp at raising capital, and I took it upon myself to get really good at understanding the multifamily real estate business in itself. That way I could get better on the phones and raise more money and actually make more money. Because at this time, I'm extremely happy with my life. I moved down to Miami with my then girlfriend, now amazing wife, and we were building our dream life together. We were making money, we had dual income, no kids, so we were able to put a lot of money away into savings and really start to make something for ourselves. Now the thought of potentially quitting and going out and trying to create something bigger wasn't like an absolute impossibility, because at the foundation, my wife and I have always been the more entrepreneurial type of people. We've started multiple businesses, or we thought they were businesses, that ended up failing very quickly, like e-com stores, Amazon FBA. We even had this company called B&B Creations where we had a CNC machine and we do custom woodwork and try to sell it. Everything failed. And so that's why we're like, maybe we should just go get a job and make some money and then figure it out later on. So in the back of our heads, we're like, we'll figure it out at some point. We're going to build something incredible, but for right now, we're in a really good opportunity. There's very few people in the entire world have the opportunity to make $200,000 in a single year, let alone at the age of 23 and 24. And let alone without a 4-year college degree, being a doctor or something crazy like that. So the idea of potentially quitting, or the urge to go out and do something else, started around year 3, and this is where I developed what I like to call the deal bug. Meaning I was raising capital for the big deals that Grant would go out and acquire, and instead of just being focused on being really good on the phones and raising money, I got really interested in the actual business of buying apartments, because I saw how much money everybody made, the investors and Grant, for putting all the deals together and managing it and making it passive for the investors. And I started to do the math. I was like, man, I'm raising $50 million in a single year, and you can go out and buy $200 to $250 million of deals. That's a ton of money that you could potentially make if you were to go out and do it on your own or under your own firm. And so as that bug started to develop, I ended up taking it upon myself to actually go out and start to try to do deals. I was looking at opportunities across the entire state of Florida. I was trying to underwrite deals. I was trying to talk to brokers. I was going through the motions of what is now the early part of my career of trying to do deals. And then I vividly remember the moment that Grant announced his real estate club, which is a real estate program that, funny enough, we actually compete against today with the Deal Room. He created it, and he needed somebody that knew how to actually look at multifamily deals and could speak the lingo to help run that new business that he had created. Because I was already one of the top investor relations people there, and I took it upon myself to be the real estate guy inside the company, I was fortunate enough to be really involved at the very beginning of that, of helping other people learn how to do the business as well. And so I ended up spending the last 6 months of my time basically doing what we're doing today, which is helping other real estate investors learn the business and go out and do their first multifamily deal. And that's when it kind of hit me. There is a possibility that, one, we can go out and buy multifamily apartments ourselves. I know I can do it because I'm a big believer if somebody else can do it, there's no reason on why I can't do it myself. So I had the belief system that I could do it, and I knew by helping hundreds of other people, they were like, thank you so much for spending the time with me. You explain this so simply. And I was getting that outside validation that maybe I knew what I was talking about, which I didn't at the time. I just had extreme confidence. And so that's when I knew in the back of my head, and it probably took maybe 3 to 4 months of a lot of conversations with my wife. We went out on plenty of walks around the park, just considering like, okay, we have a really good job right now, and we like to call it the golden handcuff opportunity, where you're in early enough with the company where you're paid really well and you take on a lot of responsibility, but you're not in early enough to be considered a part of the ownership or even an executive level where you're way overpaid. And so I kind of saw the writing in the wall. It's not a terrible opportunity where you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and working for a billionaire and see all of the amazing things that he's been able to accomplish. But you're essentially giving up on the possibility of going out and doing something on your own by accepting being in that organization for a very long period of time. After months and months and months of considering it with my wife, we finally sit down and we put together our magical pros and cons list of just going through what are all the pros of what if we quit and tried to go out and do this thing, and obviously the cons of quitting your job and literally going from 200 grand a year of income to zero. That is a frightening feeling for a ton of people. And to manage expectations, entrepreneurship and going out and trying to do things is not for everyone. In fact, a lot of the money that we've raised today from investors are from high-level C-suite executives that work for somebody else. So you don't have to be an entrepreneur to go out and make a tremendous amount of money. I think it's a mix between how my wife and I kind of were wired and wanting to be the entrepreneur, and obviously developing the skill set along the way. And so making the decision to quit that job boiled down to a couple key factors. One of the most important ones is, at this point, I had developed a skill set, and I could put on my resume in a worst case scenario, say we quit and it completely fails. We go out, we get punched in the face by the entire entrepreneurship world, people don't like what we're doing, they don't think it's valuable, nobody pays us any money, and we fail. In a worst case scenario, I lose the opportunity of working at Grant Cardone's office, but I know at the end of the day, I can put on my resume that I've raised over $100 million working for him, and I had developed the skill set where I knew in a worst case scenario, if we did fail, then we could just go back and get another job working for some other real estate firm that wants to raise capital from the everyday retail investor. And so developing the skill set that you can always fall back on is one of the biggest reasons of why we had enough belief to take that leap and actually quit. And another key factor is quality of life. To be completely honest with you, we were working 12 to 14 hours every single day on the phones, every single day. Most of the time, 6 days a week with 1 day off. So I was spending more time at the office with my office bros than I was with the love of my life, Alicia, and my amazing dogs. And so it was a lot to consider, but at the end of the day, it all led down to this one decision. So at the end of 2021, we knew that we were going to take that leap and quit. We just didn't know exactly like the steps to take. And so before we actually put in the 2-week notice and make it official, my wife and I were engaged at the time, but we weren't yet married. So after the new year, going into 2022, my wife and I ended up going down to Key West, Florida, and we eloped and we said, listen, if we're gonna take this big, giant jump, let's do it together and let's make it official. And we came back up to Miami, and my last day working for Grant Cardone's office, my absolute last job I will ever have in my entire lifetime, was on February 1st of 2022.
What's going on, everybody? It's Gabe Bowling, and yes, it is true. This is my last day working at Cardone Capital. I just quit working for the best real estate investor, Grant Cardone. After working here for 3 years, I'm quitting to go out and buy deals full time and to help people just like you learn about how to invest in real estate.
And I just remember how nervous I was walking into Ryan Secco's office and saying, hey, you know, it's been a great 3 years and I've raised a ton of money, but I think it's finally time for me to move on to the next chapter of my life. It really wasn't that big of a deal. And I vividly remember waking up the next day and I felt completely lost. I didn't have a job to go to. I didn't have a meeting to show up to at 9:04. I went to the gym and I was like, what in the world am I gonna do now? And now fast forward to where we're at today. I can tell you that the journey over the last 3 years has been a complete roller coaster. It's been entrepreneurship at its finest. Fast forward today, we have a little bit over 400 units and over $65 million of assets under management. And we run a large multifamily investor community called The Deal Room, where we help investors go out and acquire multifamily deals and help raise money for them as well, alongside of actually doing it ourselves. And the impact that we've made over the last 3 years to the members of our community have been life-changing. So that's the story and background behind why I decided to quit making $200,000 a year. 3 years into it, I can tell you by far, in the time of making the decision, it was the hardest decision because it was like the most important one, other than marrying my wife, that I have ever made in my entire life. 3 years later, I had no idea that we'd be able to accomplish this much in a short period of time. So I can tell you with absolute certainty, it was by far the best decision that we have ever made. Most of the time, the most uncomfortable decisions result in the most growth that you could ever have. So if I had to go back 3 months before I quit and like give that person some advice of making that decision, I would say absolutely do it over and over and over again, because I believe it's about the journey along the process, and you can never stop evolving and growing in money. And at the end of the day, if we did fail, we could always go and get another job making some more money. So if you're an investor or you're an aspiring investor trying to do multifamily real estate and you want to learn more about how we actually did it over the last 3 years, then make sure you check out the links in our description. You can join our community for free just to come and see everything in action and potentially even get involved in actually doing deals. And I'm curious your thoughts. If you were in my position, would you have done the same thing, or would you have stayed in the position? Let me know in the comments below, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.